everybody's interested to hear how practices have been going. Obviously, with the social distancing guidelines, mask wearing guidelines, sort of how our campus has attacked this pandemic. There are things that we need to make sure we're doing and ways to adapt. How have each of your teams sort of approached that with whether it's pods, practicing certain days a week, social distancing, obviously golf and cross country, maybe a little easier sports than some others. How have you both sort of approached practicing in this new COVID world?
Yeah, I think for our team, it hasn't been too difficult with golf. I think we realized during this time we've already social distanced. We just weren't aware of it. I think the biggest thing was the students getting used to wearing masks while playing. Golf is already a pretty difficult sport, and then to add something else can be a little bit difficult. But I think our students have done a really good job. I think they'd enjoyed the practices, getting out to the golf course. We've been doing our practices early in the morning, 7 a.m. And they all seem to be enjoying it. And I think we're working on making them morning people. So
And I would say for us, it's it's been a couple of there's probably two things that have been the most challenging. One is it's really difficult to run with a mask on, and especially on a day like today where it's raining. I mean, it's almost impossible to run fast when you have a wet mask, and so we've had to be um, thoughtful even more so than normal about weather conditions and changing schedules to try to avoid rain especially. And really their class schedules have been the other thing that's been really challenging because we have a really unusual class schedule right now, and students are having more conflicts with times that they would normally be free. And so we don't have that many students on campus to begin with. We only have, I think, 7 women for cross and 9 men, and of those 9 men, one of them decided to go home pretty early on in the semester. So it's not a very big group to start, and then their class schedules have made it difficult to have them. We really haven't had them all at the same time, and so we've had smaller groups, which isn't a huge deal because they also have to stay 6 feet apart. So when they're running a workout, they aren't really running together anyway. But just trying to give them that sense of team and that sense of community when you're running in really small groups has been hard. But to their credit, they've really brought great energy, and they've been really excited to be there, and they've been trying to make the best out of the situation that we have. And so that's been a real positive and made a tough situation a lot better. So I think everybody's done a good job of just kind of taking what we've been given and going with it.
Another quick question. The Biddy just announced the plans for the spring semester. Will anything major change? Will you get more student athletes back because there are 3 classes, seniors, juniors, and freshmen coming back? Just initial reactions to that news from yesterday.
I think for our team, it's hard to say right now how many we're going to get back. I think a lot are kind of weighing their options. I know when the announcement was made, I was working with one of the men on our team, and he was excited. He was a first year. He was super excited to be asked back. But kind of I don't know where the juniors and seniors are. Kind of what they're feeling or what decision they're going to make. I think they have a lot of things to weigh in terms of are they going to come back to campus or stick to what they've been doing this semester?
And I would say the same. I would guess that there will be more people on campus just because more people have been invited to campus, but I don't think they really have a great sense yet. From the conversations I have had, the first years sound like they're really excited to be invited back. I think they'd kind of resigned themselves to the idea that they probably weren't going to be invited back, and so they were pleasantly surprised and excited about that. The juniors and seniors seem to be really uncertain, and like Elizabeth said, they're still kind of weighing their options and trying to decide. I think it'll probably end up being sort of a critical mass thing within kind of groups of friends. If there's a critical mass of people that decide they're going to come back, then probably that whole group's going to come back. And if there's a critical mass that decide, I think I'd rather get a house with my friends and be somewhere warm, then that entire group's going to not come back to campus. So we'll see. They've been asking me kind of, oh, what do you think practice is going to be like, and how's this going to look? And I've been trying to say as much as I can, I don't know. We'll see. We really don't know what it's going to look like yet, and we don't know the state of things until we get there. So flexibility is the name of the game right now, I think.
And then a little bit of a different group. A lot of people this semester off campus. How have you attempted to engage your student athletes who are studying off campus, whether it's via Zoom, sort of challenges that they complete on their own, practices they complete on their own? What's that sort of look like?
Yeah, so on the men's side, we have most of the team off campus. On the women's side, we just have two actually off campus. I think we've done a good job of Zooming with everyone. Something we did recently last week is we did a trivia game. We called it game night. I think the students really enjoyed that. The Masters is also coming up, which is a big major in golf. So we're kind of working on ways we can do trivia, or maybe all get on a Zoom together and watch it.
So we've been trying to stay connected with them by mostly just by doing every other week check-in meetings with them. So that's something that I do with them when they're on campus and have continued to do when they're off campus. And it's just like a 15-minute check-in. We can talk about kind of whatever's on their mind at that point. And that's been really helpful for just staying connected with them. I think it helps them feel connected to the coaches and gives them an opportunity to ask questions when they have them and bring things up if they jump, have any issues along the way. So that's been good. We've been doing so for cross country. We do some things with the cross country team, and then we do some things with the cross country and the track team, because we really try to operate the track team like it's one big team. So starting, mid-summer, I think, maybe beginning of the summer, it's all blur, sometime in there. We started doing once a month, doing full team Zooms, and we started it not too long after George Floyd was murdered, talking about anti-racism, and we've kind of picked a different topic each month, and that's been, sometimes those have been hard conversations, and for the most part they've been good. They've been mostly opportunities for our team to just connect with one another and learn about each other, because we have such a big track team and people from all over the country and from all different kinds of backgrounds, and our goal is really just to get people to connect with one another and learn about one another and start talking about some of those issues, but more from a place of just curiosity about each other. Anyway, so it's been nice once a month to have that opportunity to just get on Zoom and see 40, 50, 60 friendly faces that you haven't seen for a while, when so many of them are off campus. And even for the people that are on campus, some of those event groups that I'm not working directly with, it's nice to just see those athletes. So that's been a really nice full team connection. We're also trying to think of some ways to be creative with our workouts. So, running is a little bit different from some of the other sports. It's really hard to play soccer when your team is all over the country, but everybody can run. I mean, most people, I shouldn't say everybody, but some of the people that were in places like California with wildfires had to take a little break, but for the most part, people have been able to safely run where they are. But on the flip side, it's also really hard to just run by yourself for 6 months, 9 months, could end up being 18 months before they're competing again from the time that they stopped in March. And so we're kind of at this inflection point in all this, where my assistant coach, Veronica, and I were talking about it. We were just like, boy, we cannot just keep doing the same thing we always do, because it's going to just get so boring. Then they're not going to be excited to keep doing it. And so we've got to change up the way we think about workouts and the way that we're approaching our training, because whether what we're doing is the best thing or not, it doesn't even matter. We just need to be doing something that they're going to be excited to keep doing, and that's going to keep them getting out the door and staying some kind of fit, even if it's not this perfect training plan with this perfect progression of the workouts. It's not really about best training right now. It's about staying motivated and staying excited in the face of something that, even professional runners don't train like this. Marathon runners do 2 or 3 races a year at least. And this is really atypical for any athlete to have to go this long between periods of competition and do all this training by themselves. So we just started something. We'll see if it works. We could be doing this again. We could do a podcast like this again in 3 months, and I might be like, well, that didn't work. We stopped that. But we just started something where we've taken I also coach the middle distance runners during the track season. So I kind of put everybody together, mixed them up onto 3 teams. We have a purple team, a white team, and a black team. And each week we just have a different kind of a workout. And so it's a different workout. The middle distance runners do something slightly different than the distance runners. But instead of just saying, hey, go run this distance in this much time with this much rest, sometimes it's like, hey, go run a 1200, but you can't look at your watch. I want you to tell me what you're going to hit for your pace, and then go do it. And we'll score you based on how close you got to your estimate. Or you're going to run this pace, and we want to see how far you can get at that pace. And we'll compare you again in 2 months, and we'll see if you've gotten further or something. So trying to do some workouts, but shift the way we think about it. So instead of talking about hitting certain paces and being consistent with this much rest, whatever, sort of switch it around and have them focus on a different aspect of the workout, just so it's something different. It's not the same thing all the time. And, anytime you can put a bunch of athletes on different teams and tell them there's going to be a prize at the end, gets their competitive juices going. So hopefully it'll help them stay connected, whether they're on campus or off campus, and change it up just enough to keep it interesting.
That's a pretty good transition to my next set of questions, which is, I'll start with Coach Davis. How have you tried to switch things up? Obviously playing Amherst Golf Club every day, same 9 holes, same practice facilities. Obviously we can't really go outside the bubble right now. What sort of different games, whether they're 9-hole games, short game area, anything like that, have you tried to implement? And is there now a move into the golf room, which is a bit of a different facility?
Yeah, great question. I've had to become really creative this semester, because playing the same 9 holes over and over again can get really boring for the athletes. I think the first week they were really pumped, they were getting out and playing, and by second week they're ready to play another course. And I'm like, well, we're going to be here all semester, so I got to change it up. So we played, the normal match play. We did a tournament, but probably some of my most favorite games we've done alternate shot, which is a lot of fun, some hard competition. And then we've done alternate shot match play as well. That was really exciting. And then one other one we played, I believe one of the men called it battle golf. And it was match play where if an individual won the hole, they got to take a club out of the other player's bag and they couldn't use it for the rest of the 9. So that was a lot of fun. Lastly, we did three clubs for the whole 9 holes. And I think they were surprised. They shot about the same as if they would have had all of their clubs in the bag. So we've had to become creative, but it allows me to maybe use this in the future as well. It allowed me to think outside of the box.
Sort of the same question, not being able to leave campus, what do the running routes look like? Have your student athletes been able to find enough routes to keep themselves from becoming bored, enough routes to keep themselves challenged? I guess sort of where, if you could paint us a picture, where have they been running?
Yeah, we don't have a lot of options. So we've been using the cross country trails that we have on campus a little bit for workouts. Although the athletes, honestly, as the semester's gone on, that we've started using the track a little bit more, because I think they just are, they enjoy being on the track, and it's a good change of pace. They can run on the bike path for their easy runs. It's paved, so it's honestly, it's okay. Like it's nice because it's just a nice route. And it's one of those locations for running that in a normal situation, you might go out for a run on the bike path and you run down a mile and then you hop on a little dirt trail. And we have all these trails in Amherst that are great. We can't use them right now. So I'm trying to emphasize to some of our higher mileage people that you really should probably be going on the cross country trails, which are dirt, for the beginning and maybe even the end of your run every day, and then do the middle part on the bike path. Because if you're just running on that pavement all the time and you're running 80 miles a week, like you're definitely going to end up injured. So it's a balancing act. I mean, I think the people on campus are really, they probably tell you they're getting kind of sick of the same routes all the time for their easy runs and their long runs. But on the flip side, they are so incredibly grateful to have that bike path, and grateful that the college has included that as part of the bubble, because I think without the bike path, they'd really be going bonkers if it was just running around campus and hopping on treadmills and stuff like that. So, there's not a ton of creativity to the routes, because if you're going to run that kind of mileage, if you're running 10, 12 miles a day, there's just not that many places that you can go besides the bike path. But at least the bike path is beautiful. And especially this time of year with the leaves turning and all that, like it's not the worst place to confine your runs. So.
I wonder, has there been sort of any talk about how cross-country races look social distanced, or whether it's staggered start or time trial or anything like that?
Yeah, there's a number of ways people are doing things. I mean, my feeling is I'm not really sure it helps you all that much. If you're in a cross country race, having 20 teams of 10 people, 20 people, whatever on a starting line, that starting line area is a challenge. But so is the race, right? So, you can stagger the starts and you could say, okay, everybody's going to get to run your first runner first, and then we're going to wait 15 seconds, and then you're going to run your second runner, and then we're going to wait 15 seconds, and then you're going to start your third runner. You still all have to be in the starting area. So you're still all pretty close to each other. So unless you stagger those starts by, an hour or 30 minutes or enough time for the people to finish their races, which just becomes unrealistic, then all of a sudden your meet's going to take 3 days. I'm not actually sure your exposure is any less. And I also don't know of too many cross country courses that can actually handle staggered starts. I mean, a lot of cross country courses, the route that you take loops back on itself, or you run the same section multiple times. And it's hard enough just to keep with the same start to keep people going on the right paths and, closing off one route so that they go the right way. And then when they come back, you got to open it back up so that they go a different way. You get people going in waves, and suddenly it's even harder to keep track of who's where in the race and make sure people don't go the wrong way. So some of our athletes are really fired up to do time trials, and because they're in great shape and they're really excited, and that's really motivating for them. And other people are like, it just doesn't excite me. I'm not thrilled to be doing that. And trying to force somebody in that situation to go to a time trial is not really helpful for them. So our approach has been to try to talk to each person and just sort of say, hey, what's going to get you fired up and excited about training and getting out there each day to keep working hard. And for some people, that's doing stuff like that. And for other people, that's just not where they're at right now, or it's not their personality. There's somebody who, needs that adrenaline of a competition to really put out their best. And so the idea of doing a solo time trial in practice just isn't their thing anyway.
It's sort of the same thing. Coach Davis, I know you and I both watched the college golf that's been on Golf Channel. There's been some new strategies. What do you think of what you've seen from the Division I golf that's playing? It's obviously on a very small scale right now, but they've done some cool stuff as well in terms of trying to make it as safe as possible.
Yeah, so it is a small number that is playing, and it seems to be the larger Division I schools as of right now. There are a few Division III and Division II schools, but mainly D1 schools. And probably the biggest thing that has stood out to me is in golf, normally you're paired with other teams in a tournament. You're not paired with your own team. Instead, what they're doing is they're pairing all of your team together. So in golf, you play 5 players, so they're pairing all 5 together. I think that's a great idea. You're having then no exposure to anyone else. 2, I know I've talked to a couple coaches, and they're staggering when players can use the driving range to warm up, when players can use the putting and short game facility as well. They've also limited the size of tournaments, but probably the biggest thing that stood out to me was playing all the players together. It's definitely a different dynamic of, what I saw on TV. There were some teams that did really well under that format, and then some teams that just wasn't a format for them. So it was kind of cool to see that. And it might be a trend in college golf to have a few tournaments like that. And it'll be interesting to see what happens in the future with all this.
Yeah, it would be interesting to see if we brought that to Division III, how the scores would change. And I guess my final question, sort of, you just became the head coach of both the men's and the women's programs. What do you see as the biggest opportunity?
I think, looking in the past, something we didn't, Coach Arena and I didn't really do is interact the men's and women's teams in terms of practicing. So it's kind of exciting to see the 2 teams practicing, battling out on the golf course, playing match play together, being on the same Zoom call. I think it just allows for more players to compete with one another, and it allows us to all be under, one roof, that we're just the Amherst golf team. And I'm excited to see where that takes us, and just the cohesiveness among the team, I think is already going really well. And I'm excited to see how it shapes out. But the biggest thing is just, having more players to play with in terms of practice and stuff like that. So I'm excited, to see how this goes. And obviously we don't have everyone on campus this semester, so it's a little different looking, but I think in the future, it's going to be really great.
one more sort of close to home question. My sister is my twin sister, just graduated from Carleton College, where you went to school and then started your coaching career. I know I have a lot of takes between the similarities between Amherst and Carleton. I think there's a lot. It's definitely sort of a cool small college conversation. With Carleton doesn't really get lumped in with the NESCACs as much, but it's kind of the same world, I guess you could say. I guess my question is there something you learned or took from Carleton coming to Amherst that really helped you out?
Yeah, it's funny, when I got the job at Amherst, I remember looking at the roster and being like, well, I recruited her. I was bummed when she went to Amherst. And there was a freshman on the team that year that basically within like half an hour or something of them announcing that I'd been hired, she texted me, because I really thought she was coming to Carleton. And when she said she was going to Amherst, I remember the head coach and I just being like, what? I cannot believe that Keelan is going, to Amherst. And she texted me, it was just like, what? You're coming to Amherst? I was like, no, I just had to coach you. So, I followed you here. One of the big differences for me as a coach is that when I was at Carleton, I felt like a lot of our recruiting energy was on the front end. So we would spend a lot of time trying to sort of generate that pool of really interested recruits, because you'd call somebody, and they'd be like, Minnesota, I don't know. Like, I'm not sure I'm moving to Minnesota. Yeah. And you'd have to kind of convince them that like, no, I promise, like, this is a really good school and our athletes have a great experience and we have a really good program. And if we could get them to come to campus, we had a really good shot at getting them to come to school there. But if we couldn't get them over the hump about Minnesota and the fact that it's cold and whatever, then we were never going to get them over that hump. But it seemed like if you could get to that end point of the process, more of those kids would end up actually coming. Whereas at Amherst, I feel like you have no problem generating a pool, because you have all these people who just, I'm going to look at all the Ivies, I'm going to look at all the NESCAC schools, maybe they throw in a Swarthmore or somewhere that's like, I'm going to branch out and I'm going to go all the way down to Philadelphia, right? Like, they have all the same people looking at them, but then all of your energy is on the back end of, okay, I gotta narrow this down and figure out who actually likes Amherst and for whom is Amherst actually a good fit. The coaches that are still there were my coaches when I was there. Dave, who's the men's coach now, was Donna, his wife's assistant coach. So the two head coaches were my coaches when I was an athlete there. My husband, who is also a runner at Carleton, was also coached by Dave for a year. So, they're basically like family to us. We talk to them still all the time, but I think they really influenced, I never thought I was going to be a coach until I was in college running for them. And part of the reason why I even considered going into coaching was their approach to coaching, the experience that I had as an athlete running for them. And for me, my interest was science. And I really thought, ironically, that I was going to study viruses and study epidemiology. And I think my family's all very glad that's not the route that I took right in this particular moment. But for me, it was an injury my senior year that kind of sidelined me, and being a captain that wanted to stay involved, I started just spending a lot of time hanging out with Dave at practice and just kind of watching what was happening and talking to him about workouts and talking to him about what he saw, and realizing that, wow, there's a lot to this, and there's a lot of science to this, and there's a lot of just paying attention to each individual athlete and figuring out what makes them tick and figuring out what they need. And it's really different for one person versus another. And so, I like to think, I hope my athletes would agree that that's something that I brought with me here, because in my mind, that's something that I got from my coaches at Carleton. Maybe I would have gotten that from any coach anywhere, but I don't think so. I think that's something that the two of them are exceptionally good at.
All right, I think we're going to go to the rapid fire round, which is my personal favorite. I have 4. We'll see how many we get through. Coach Davis, I'll start with you. The first one is, if you had to create Mount Rushmore of Amherst restaurants, you don't necessarily have to make final cuts right now, but what would be in the conversation at least?
Yeah, that's hard. There's a lot of great restaurants.
And, you can do Amherst or Pioneer Valley in general.
Got it. So I think I would do for sure Mission Cantina. I love Love that place. They have great quesadillas there if no one's ever been there. I think I would have to do, I think it's Joe's Pizza. I believe it's in Northampton.
Yeah.
It's really good. Highly recommend it. I think those are just my main two right there. I don't think I could put another on the list right now.
Really? Nothing holds a candle to those two then?
I don't think so. I don't think so. Those are definitely the top restaurants. Maybe I could throw in Oriental Flavor. I do like that. That place is good too.
Yeah.
I know the team loves it too. I think anytime
Yeah.
we go out, they either want that or Johnny's. So
Yeah. Okay. Cassie, what would be on there for you?
Well, this is tough because I don't live in Amherst. I live like an hour away. So the number of times that I eat out in Amherst is very, especially right now, is far between. But you know, I'm with Elizabeth. I really like Mission. I feel like for a Texan to say that they like Mission is, you know, that's high praise, right?
Yeah.
it is. It's really good. Their quesadillas and their tacos. It's a small menu, but it's a good menu.
Good, yeah. So Mission Cantina is definitely on my list. Antonio's is definitely on my list. Gosh, I thought of somewhere else. Oh, I like Johnny's. Johnny's is probably on my list too. Yeah, I like Fresh Side. I'm pretty.
Yeah. I mean, that the reason I asked the question is sort of like if someone, hey, oh, that sounds good tonight. Like obviously these places are going through a tough time right now with having to adapt to takeout and everything. So, and if you can go out and support an Amherst restaurant tonight, please do. This one's sort of the same cloth, but the biggest hidden gem in the Pioneer Valley, something that maybe not a lot of people think about, maybe a hike, an attraction, something like that. Coach Davis, you want to start?
Sure, I'll start. So mine is Mount Sugarloaf, but it's not the normal Mount Sugarloaf. It's the North Mount Sugarloaf Trail. Highly recommend it. I found it this semester. I've done a lot of hiking since there's not a lot to do. And I have a dog, Ginger. We went out there. It was great. Probably some of the best views, and we did not see one person on the trail. So the parking lot holds about 3 cars, so it's not a very trafficked trail, and I highly recommend it. It's on all trails if anyone's interested in it.
Nice.
Mine is definitely Flavors ice cream. I take my team there every year in the fall, you know, during orientation week, during preseason. And, you know, for me, I'm a farm girl from Kansas originally. So, you know, any chance I have to get my city slickers out there, seeing actual cows and actual animals is great. So the fact that it's close to campus, the ice cream's fantastic. That's a highlight for me for sure.
Yeah, that's a great one. I'm favorite of the Amherst men's golf team in my time at Amherst. We always used to say D3 golf, D1 ice cream. So with Flavors, that was always the deal. Mine, which I haven't said yet, would be Yankee Candle Village in Deerfield, right on the edge of Deerfield. If you haven't been,
I have never been. So why is it your hidden gem?
You kind of are impressed with the magnitude. You know, the first time I went, I thought I was just kind of walking up to a candle store, and it is like a Disney World for candles, basically. So it's just kind of shocking when you walk through it. But yeah, it's definitely worth the visit. Probably not now. The social distancing in there is probably not great, but once we get back to normal. We kind of touched on a little bit earlier, the best sort of quintessential fall view or area around our campus. Obviously there's a lot to pick from. AGC for me is probably up there, but Coach Davis, what would you say?
Yeah, I would say AGC, Amherst Golf Club, is hole number 1. Just looking out is absolutely gorgeous. But I like Memorial Hill. I love it. I love taking recruits and showing them that, and just how beautiful our campus is. And I think it's pretty in the fall. I also think it's really pretty in the winter when there's all the snow on the ground. So those are probably my 2 favorite views.
Yeah.
Mine is probably, I really like the bird sanctuary loop out on our cross country course, which my athletes would be rolling their eyes because it's a really hard loop for running. We haven't actually used it this fall because the footing's really bad. So going back to your question before, Nick, about places that we're running, it's really kind of a bummer because we don't have that many spots we can use. And right now that one's a little bit out of commission because it just is a little bit rough. But I think for me, the reason I always think about that one is because I'm I'm only really out there during cross country season. And so it just always kind of takes me to that quintessential fall. But then it also has a really just nice view of that row of trees along the bike path that you can see from those trails. The color is exceptionally nice. And I have some very distinct memories of very specific athletes out there, running a workout at an odd time because somebody had a lab that conflicted with practice or something. And I'm standing out there in the bird sanctuary as they're running, hard 1600s or thousands or something. And they run off and I have 4 minutes or, 6 minutes or whatever till they get back. And I'm just standing out there appreciating how lovely the weather is. And that's obviously not what they're thinking about, but when I think about fall on campus, that's a spot that I always think of.
My last one in the rapid fire section is go-to order at Antonio's.
Avocado quesadilla pizza.
Agreed, 100%. You took the words out of my mouth. That's my go-to.
I asked Coach Falstick this in the first episode. Obviously, the last, from when Amherst suspended classes in March to now, there's a million different things happening in the world, from social justice conversations that have been raised to the COVID-19 pandemic to the election and much more. As we sort of build back as an Amherst Athletics team and the people who support us, what do you think is the greatest opportunity we have, sort of introspectively, in this time where there is no competition, and sort of until we get back to that down the road, what's our greatest opportunity to improve?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question, Nick. I think there's always room of improvement with this, and this is like an ongoing conversation, and it's ongoing of us educating ourselves. I think specifically for our team, it's allowed us to actually, sit down and spend time over these difficult questions. The women's team this summer spent time reading a book, and that was really good. We read How to Be an Anti-Racist, highly recommend it. I know we did it as a department as well, but we had some really hard conversations, but some really good conversations as well. And that didn't just end in the summer. I've seen those conversations play out this fall, to just even on the golf course, or, even over our Zoom calls, just players bringing stuff up. That's been really great. Something else that's really stood out to me is the AC votes. I think that's been awesome to have. Our team, we did a really good job of making sure we were 100% registered to vote. I think that's really important during this time period. So, even though we haven't had competition, it has allowed us to focus on other things, and really important stuff going on in this world, and really tough stuff. And it's allowed our teams to sit down and talk about it and figure out, ways we can do better around these conversations as a team, and ways that we can make a difference on the, Amherst College community campus, and then off campus as well for the students that are off campus this semester.
Now, this is maybe not answering your question exactly as you asked it, but the thing that it kind of got me thinking about is how I think I can say for college students, probably for coaches as well, and maybe this is true of everybody that works on a college campus, I think it's really easy to kind of put on your blinders and focus on the next thing at hand. And whether that's, especially for, ironically for golf and for cross country, where, you guys you have golf in the fall, then you have golf in the spring, we have cross country, indoor, outdoor, we're in season a lot of the year. And so it's really easy, I think, to just sort of get caught up in that grind of, focus on the next thing, focus on the next thing, focus on the next thing. And be so focused on what's happening with our program, or what's happening with our team, or what's happening with my teammates, or my season, or if you're an athlete, I got this test next week and I got this big meet, and you just kind of are so caught up in what's happening with you. I think this whole thing has been such a reminder that there's a lot of world out there besides just what we are doing right here in this moment. And, whether that's keeping your eyes on social justice issues, whether that's, what's going on with the election, whether that's just getting registered to vote, whatever, there's a lot of areas where we can expand our focus and using this time as much as we can. I mean, I think everybody's bandwidth is also down. And so, understanding what you actually have the capacity to do is also really important. But I guess, in a really tough moment like this, where, you are kind of operating at lowered capacity versus normal, it's, again, really easy to kind of shift your focus smaller and just sort of get through from one day to the next. And the more that you can actually broaden that, I think, and appreciate. I was just talking with a couple different athletes in the last couple of days about how, listen, this is tough for everybody. Like 2020 is a really hard year. And, I've had conversations with people my age. I've had conversations with people my parents' age in their 60s and 70s saying, this is the most terrible year I've ever been through in my life, and to remember that, okay, yeah, you might be a senior who's losing their last, year of competition, or you might be somebody who just graduated who is now not sure what they're going to do for a job or for whatever. But to me, it kind of helps actually to have that broader perspective that this is not just hard for me. This is hard for a lot of people for a lot of different reasons. And not like, oh, you shouldn't feel sorry for yourself, just to appreciate that it's okay. It's okay to be struggling. It's okay to not be okay sometimes. And it's okay to be frustrated or to be mad or to be grieving the things that you've lost. And to know that everybody's kind of pulling together to get through this. And we will get through this, and this will end eventually. And things may not go back to normal in exactly the same sense. And some things will, and some things won't. And all of that's going to be all right. And I think the more that we can focus on the positives, focus on the things that we have control over, and let go of the things that we don't have control over, and try not to be, sad or angry about the things that we don't have any effect on, the easier everybody's time is going to be sort of coping with this tough period. But
Absolutely, yeah.
I don't know, I think there's something really valuable in sort of that broad perspective that this is a hard thing for the whole world. Like literally everyone in the world is being impacted by this. That helps, I think, when you're kind of struggling with the day to day.
I think we're going to end it there. I very much appreciate you both coming on and having the conversation. We covered a lot, from practice to some restaurants to everything else. We're editing a couple episodes together right now, so we'll see when this gets released, but I'll keep you guys updated, and enjoy the snow tomorrow. No matter when this gets released, we recorded on the day before the first snow was expected. So hopefully we get a good, it's 1 to 3 inches right now, but you never really know in New England, so we'll see.
I know our players are excited, some of them who haven't really seen snow before. So
the West Coasters are very excited. So
I'll admit, runners are not so excited, but
that makes sense.
That's all right. They'll handle it once it does happen.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you two very much. I appreciate it, and take care and go Mammoth, huh?